Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who, at their worst, learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. 3 feet tall, in a wheelchair, Sean's fantasy as a child and a teenager was just to blend in. Devastated when he was turned down for multiple jobs that he viewed as normal jobs, a mentor pointed out to him that his disability was actually a gift and that he was meant to share his story and lead and inspire others. When he realized this, his world began to change. You see, Dr. Sean Stephenson was predicted not to survive at birth because of a rare bone disorder that stunted his growth and caused his bones to be extremely fragile, fracturing over 200 times by just the age of 18. Despite all his challenges, he took a stand for a quality of life that has inspired millions and millions across the world. Over the past 24 years, his powerful message has been heard at live events in nearly all 50 states and in 16 countries. Sean has presented at hospitals, universities, prisons, and to companies such as Nike, Whole Foods, Zappos, Walmart, and Sharp Healthcare. He's shared the stage with U.S. presidents, billionaire business moguls, celebrities, and His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. Sean has appeared on everything from the Oprah Show to Jimmy Kimmel, in addition to online videos with tens of millions of views. The Biography Channel even produced an hour-long feature on his life called The 3-Foot Giant. Join in today and learn exactly how Sean Stephenson has repeatedly leveled up and created everything from nothing. Sean, I am so excited to interview you because you're just such an inspiration. I know you've been in the motivational speaking space, you coach, you do all these amazing things, and everyone knows who you are. You've got this big brand online. You're just incredible. And you have this just amazing journey and story behind you that has made you. And you're such a perfect example of somebody who's created everything from nothing and continually leveled up. So I'm very fortunate to have you here today. Thank you for being a guest and talking with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So Sean, take us back because your life could have gone in a lot of different directions. Take us back to your first memories. Like, how did you become who you are today? Like, who were you before all of this?
Well, I believe that I was pretty young when I figured out that I was meant to lead the masses.
Okay.
I was in high school and I had lost a student body president in high school, and that was devastating. And I felt like, what's the purpose of going on living? And, dramatic teenager. Right? And then after that, it all worked out perfectly because then I ran for this group called Boy State, and I ran for governor, and I got elected out of 1,000 guys. And then from there, I went on to get elected to Blaze Nation, where I got to go to D.C. U.S. Capitol and meet President Bill Clinton, and then later work for President Clinton. And it just started to grow where I was like, wow, people are listening to me and they look up to me and they want to know my story. And so when I was in high school, I got turned down. Some people know this, but I got turned down and rejected from 3 different side jobs that I was trying to apply to get some extra spending money in the summer. And one was at an electronics store, one was a chiropractor, and one was at a limo company answering their calls. And I got turned down by all 3, and I thought, how the heck am I going to make money if no one wants to hire me? And they all blatantly, this was the early 90s, and the Americans with Disabilities Act had just passed, but people weren't really enforcing it. So that people were blatantly discriminating against me because of my disability. And I'm like, I got to get a job. And so finally a high school guidance counselor came to me and said, Sean, what if I paid you $75 to go speak to a school about what it's like to have a disability? And $75 when you're in high school as a kid in the early 90s was a lot of money. And I was like, heck yeah, I'll try that. And, people my whole life had stared at me being 3 feet tall and in a wheelchair. You can't even leave your house without being looked at. And so I'm like, well, let's start getting paid for being stared at. And so I did that first speech. I fell in love with making audiences laugh and cry and taking them on emotional journeys.
So it's interesting because the Disability Act wasn't in place yet. So you were trying to fit in to like just normal society, just in a job. And it almost like you weren't working with your disability. It's really a gift if you look at it that way now.
Oh, yeah.
But it was that person that recognized that it's actually a gift and said, hey, why don't you come speak into that and talk about it? And that was like your lucky break, because it's almost like you can't hide it. You can't hide the disability, but working against it was not helping you.
Yeah, well, I would even go far as say, thank God that I was not allowed to do something normal.
Oh,
If I was allowed, let me just paint a bleak picture of what life could have looked like for me.
okay.
If that electronic store had said, yeah, we'll let you be a salesperson, and by no means am I poo-pooing anybody who wants to take these kinds of jobs, but I would have just been selling TVs and stereos in a little job. I probably would have gone on to college and then maybe done something small. I think I would have continued to play small because I would have just said, well, I want to be accepted like everybody else. So let me just get a normal job, have a normal life. Because when you're 3D tall in a wheelchair, your fantasy is blending in. You don't want to stand out at a young age because
Yeah.
you feel like you're forced into everybody looking at you. And thank God that I didn't get my normal goals achieved. That instead I spoke to that school for $75, and then a week later another school called and said, "Hey, we heard you did such a good job." And then after that, I think it was an insurance company called and said, "Hey, we'd like you to speak." And then a prison called, and then a hospital called, and then all these different people started calling in, and I made my first little threefold brochure and got a business card, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm getting $75 an hour. And then, I was able to scale up to $500. That was a big jump to go from $75 speaker to $500.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for mentors because I would still be in the grade school market, which was fine. And that was a great place to cut my teeth. But I'd still be making $500 to $1,000 a speech, speaking to auditoriums of 200 to 300 elementary students. If it hadn't been for mentors that said, look, the masses need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. And they sure did. So take me back a little bit to as a kid, as a kid, you knew you had this gift or disability as you looked at it. And you mentioned something, you said that it was a fantasy to blend in. It was a fantasy to blend in. How were kids growing up? Were they supportive of you? Were they making fun of you? Like, what were you up against and how did that start shaping you?
So this is going to surprise you maybe, but because I've received people asking me this question before, and people always think that, oh, did the kids tease you? No, the kids were never my problem. It was their parents.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? What were the parents?
Parents would step in and they meant well. I think they had good intentions, but sometimes naivety and ignorance can really be hurtful to somebody. And so the parents would step in and say, we don't want to have Sean over to our kid's birthday party because what if he gets injured when they're using the pinata? Or we don't want Sean hanging out with our son because our son needs to be getting exercise and be on his bike. And if he hangs out with Sean, he's just going to play video games and stay inside. And so, I heard parents in other rooms tell my parents why their children couldn't hang out with me.
Wow.
And to this day, that still sometimes chokes me up, thinking back about little Sean or younger Sean, I should say. And, thinking back about how, when you discriminate against somebody because of their sexual orientation or their skin color or their whatever, that is clearly racism or sexism, right?
Right.
But when you discriminate against somebody because of their physical ability, you feel like you have a valid reason And so then all of a sudden it becomes, well, of course we can't have Sean in the musical, because what if he gets hurt on near the scaffolding, which was one of the things that I didn't get in the initial wave of the musical, because there was scaffolding. And my parents said, look, that's on Sean and us. And that's why school, has to let Sean in, because, you can't just put him in a bubble,
Mm,
So it was really all about navigating adults as a kid.
yeah.
Much harder. Teachers. I had one teacher, and again, I think these people meant well. I don't think they were
Mhm.
malicious. But I had a teacher say to my parents, with me in the room, wouldn't Sean be more comfortable going to a school with his own kind?
Ooh.
And I just remembered thinking, I didn't understand then how hurtful that was.
Yeah.
Saw how that impacted my parents and how they had to be ferociously uh, protective and say, look,
Yeah.
that is not an acceptable way to go about treating our child.
Now, did your parents talk to you that way? Did they tell you this is not acceptable? Did they coach into that, or did they ignore it? How did your parents handle that with you directly?
But they handled it by saying, look, Sean, you're going to have to be. I was raised Christian, so my mentality was always, this is the cross you have to bear, right? And
Yeah.
so my parents were like, this is the cross you're going to have to carry. Like, your whole life, you are going to have to be an educator. You're going to have to re educate people how to treat you. And if you don't speak up for yourself, no one's going to. I remember being in France when I was a little kid, 8 years old, on vacation, and the waiter turned to my parents and asked me what I wanted to eat. And I remember welling up with tears thinking,
Mhm.
why can't people ask me?
Yeah.
And my aunt pulls on my shirt and she says, Sean, you better speak up. You need to interrupt that conversation and say, I can order for myself.
Yes.
And so I did. And the waiter was kind of shocked by it all. And, that's been my whole life. People will still oddly. Here I am, a world traveling, pretty well known human being, and people will sometimes still turn to my wife at a restaurant and say, "What might he have?" And
Wow.
and I'm
Wow.
just like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to be paying the bill here, so you might want to look at."
Yeah. And I tip you too. So you be careful.
But you have to, and I speak to women and minorities of all issues, is you have to be willing to educate people without bitterness in your voice and your heart.
Yeah. No,
Because it would have been so easy for me to say, screw you, world. If you're not going to treat me like a human, then I'm not going to be nice.
yeah. These powerful lessons I'm hearing, though, from your parents was that they taught you early on about not having a victim mentality, because they could have easily said, these people suck, they're wrong. This, treat my son better. That they put it back on you. Like, okay, you get to speak up. You get to take ownership. You get to educate. And I love that your parents did that for you. And I have a feeling that has a lot to do with how you formed your beliefs later on.
Here, I mean, the metaphor my parents always use is rule with a velvet hammer. So,
Ooh,
like, you need to be soft, but have some weight behind it. You cannot, just because they're like in 1990, they passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, which gave people with disabilities lots of protection.
mhm.
However, I've learned that just because there's a law there doesn't mean it's going to be enforced. And that means you have to be the one that enforces it. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone into buildings where, it wasn't accessible even though it was a brand new building.
Yeah.
Or people would just come out and discriminate against me for certain applications of things. And I'm just like, this is unacceptable. And then
Mhm.
I now have to go get the lawyer to enforce the law.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're not speaking up, it's like, who is? So your parents had a good point there about taking that leadership role.
Yeah,
Because
I was the first person in my elementary school with a disability, and the principals and the teachers were so scared that they really fought for me to go to this other school where they were just all kids with disabilities. And my parents were like, no, Sean is going to be mainstreamed. And now people don't even think twice about that. But in the early '80s, that was a big deal.
Yeah, no, it really was. Now, I'm curious about this is a question I've been wanting to ask you. So, when kids, even then, now, maybe it's changed over the years, when a kid stares, because kids are so naive, if a kid's looking, what's the right response from a parent? And what do you want a kid doing? Do you want kids asking you? Do you want them looking the other way? Like, I think nobody ever goes to the source to ask. There's just this, like, I see it happen all the time. Like a parent say to a kid, stop staring, or like, what's the right thing to do?
Yeah, I've always wanted to write a book on this issue and then just sell it to the parent right in that aisle.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, here's a book called How to Handle This Awkward Moment. But, here's the thing. Kids, they're more curious than anything. And,
Yes.
and I can always tell how good of a parent they have based on how the child interacts with me.
Mhm.
If the child comes up and says, I'm curious, why are you little? I know that
Mhm.
that's probably good parenting because the kid's not afraid to interact.
Yeah.
The kid's not afraid to ask. The kid doesn't feel sorry for me. They want to just know what's going on.
Yeah. They're just curious.
They're just curious. And the worst thing a parent can do is scold that child right in that moment because it creates
Mhm.
this awkward moment for me, awkward moment for this child who's forming and imprinting their experiences for the rest of their life at that age. And so, like some parents will actually literally come over, put their hands on their head, turn the child's head away from me, and not even look at me and walk away. And I'm just like,
Wow.
oh my God, do you realize what you're doing to that child? And
Yeah.
so, whereas if a parent says, no, no, it's okay, go ask him a question, or they'll say, uh, sweetie, why don't you ask him in a more polite way or whatever?
Yeah.
As long as the parent is modeling uh, a a loving, gentle, compassionate side, the kid will usually be very normal about it.
Yeah.
And my response has always been, hey, you know how there are little dogs and there are big dogs? And they're like, yeah. And I say, I look like a little dog.
Yeah. I love
And
it.
then, and then as soon as a kid sees me as a little dog, they're like, well, that makes sense. And then we're done. We're done with that. And then they want to know what my favorite color is. And
Yeah.
if I heard of SpongeBob or whatever, right? And the parents are so pivotal in how they respond to that moment. You know,
Yes.
if they create a space where kids feel safe asking.
Yes. I
So,
hope the parents are listening to this because this is something nobody really talks about. It is important. It's very important because how we act to our kids is shaping them forever. So what
and
we
they,
teach
and
them, they model.
they watch what we're doing more than what we tell them. You know,
Yes.
you can tell them all you want and all your long-winded lectures to them, but then they're just going to watch how you handle it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen my whole life.
So, Sean, you had some amazing people in your life. You had parents that handled things well. You had these mentors and people that really saw a gift in this and got you really educating more people and speaking and coaching and doing more and more of that. Do you still struggle with it being a disability or do you look at it as a gift now? Like, what's your take on you now?
Well, people ask me, they're like, what's your number one challenge, right? Like, what do you
Hmm.
deal with? And my disability is like usually the last thing on my mind during the day.
Okay.
I think about scaling my business
Yep.
and getting to the next level and helping my customers and creating bonds with my team and all of that. I have entrepreneurial challenges. My disability is faded into the background now. You know,
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
there's this great equalizer called money.
Yep.
And, I'm of the opinion, and I mean this as humbly as possible. When you have money to remove stress, and when you have money to remove the struggles of life, you are given more of a gift through your abilities and reach than if somebody had a perfectly normal body. I would much rather have a disability and an impact and a flowing income than a great body not knowing how to survive
Yes.
financially.
Yes. And I would imagine, I mean, you tell me, but because you have clients and you speak to people all over the place, but when somebody's complaining of why they can't get something done, you probably, I would imagine you look at them like, are you crazy? Like, look at what I've accomplished. Do you feel like that or do you
Well,
not
they
feel?
don't see it that way. So
Okay.
I may feel that way on the inside, uh,
Hmm.
but you can't come right out and hit them with that because their brain's not going to compute it.
Okay.
It's more of I've learned to ask questions.
Okay.
I've learned to get the person through questions to see, is that mentality serving you? Is that mindset going to help you, solve your problem? And, by asking questions, and then I might share, a common challenge that I'm having, and then pace them a little bit and then lead them out of that thinking.
Yeah.
I can't just shove my life into their face. Like I work out every day.
Okay.
And I love exercise. I bought a fitness company. I believe in the importance of taking care of your health and nutrition. And yet people will tell me all day why they can't work out. And I'm over here thinking, listen, I can't go into a normal sized gym because most of the equipment is not built for my size. So I had
Yeah.
to build my own gym out of everyday household items. My chest press is bicycle pumps,
Yeah.
but I had to find something, right? And, it's this mentality of the only disability is one's refusal to adapt. If you
Cool.
refuse to adapt, you're far more disabled than I am. If you won't adapt in business, you're going to go out of business. If you're not going to adapt in a relationship, it's going to fall apart. You're not going to adapt with your body, you're going to die. Like, I can't tell you the number of times that I have had to change the environment, change the thinking to adapt to the new circumstances that have recently arrived.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really insightful, all of this. You mentioned as a kid, you knew you were meant to lead, you were going to do big things. Like, did you always have a vision that it would be this, or what was your original vision? Like, what did you want to be originally?
Well, it's still shifting. I'm not even sure what this is at this point because I'm adding new goals and new
Hmm.
interests to my life. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian,
Okay.
and here we are. I think I wanted to do that when I was 10, and I'm now about to turn 40. So 30 years later, I've done something recently that I'm really proud of, and that is I went back to my childhood dreams
Okay.
and decided to start honoring the little kid in me. And
Ooh, I like
so
that.
I
Yeah.
started doing comedy. I started going and booking myself at comedy clubs and doing stand up comedy. I went back to when I was a teenager and said, what was my dream car back then? And I went and bought it.
Ooh, what was that? What was the dream car as a kid?
Yeah, I wanted an Escalade when they came
Okay.
out with a Cadillac Escalade. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I went out and bought a Cadillac Escalade. And so, like, now I feel one of the things that I'm really proud of in my life is I'm honoring the younger version of myself.
Oh, I love that. That's such great advice, Sean, because, a lot of times when I lead seminars, I ask people to go around and like, what did you want to be as a little kid? I love asking that question. And people's faces light up and they say things and people giggle. Like people want to be a superhero. They wanted to be whatever it was they wanted to be. But you see this whole energy shift in people talking about what they wanted to be as a child. And then somehow along the way, we get other people's opinions. We have hardships. We have all this stuff sort of happen and we forget our whole dream. We forget our dream. We start living this different life. And what you're doing is actually great advice for everybody. Like, why don't we go back and honor that little kid?
Maybe I don't have to be a full time stand up comedian, but if I do it just to honor that younger self and I enjoy it every month, I do one comedy gig, that
Yeah,
scratches an energetic, almost like a past life
totally.
version of me. I'll tell you a quick activity that I do that I think might be of interest to when you're doing seminars and things. I make people pull out a notebook and write down all the mean things that they sometimes say to themselves
Mm,
and their internal dialogue, if you will, when they're in a
yep.
dark. And then what I do is I ahead of time have my assistant email everybody that's going to be at the conference, and they have to send off a childhood photo to our office, and we print
Mhm.
them out, and then we hand them out to everybody and we get them into groups and we make them read those mean things to that childhood picture.
Wow.
And everybody gets emotionally affected by it.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're thinking, why am I being mean to this little kid? And you see that little kid still lives inside of you. You know, the unconscious mind, it's been said that the unconscious is somewhere between a 5 and 7-year-old child. And your unconscious mind is still with you.
Totally.
And if you are not kind to that little kid, it will cause self-sabotage and all kinds of challenges. It's like, why is it that we could set a goal and then do the opposite? Well, it's because that little kid inside of us is hurt and it needs to be loved and connected with to get on the same page with us.
Such great insight. So true. And I love that you're honoring that little kid right now, that you went back and got the car, the stand-up committee, all of it. It's just, I mean, just even you sharing this, I can feel a different energy shift. It's like, it's pretty cool. And I think everyone should go back and relive make those dreams come to fruition. That's amazing.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to say about that is I reread my goals every morning.
Okay.
And some of my goals are so big, I have no idea how I'm going to do them. And, this is why I share this piece that I had never heard really anybody else talk about. And that is, I think it's more important to have a goal than to achieve a goal. Because achievement is in the past. It's done. It's over. When you have a goal, you have something to get out of bed for. You have something to work toward. People oftentimes will live longer than a medical prognosis if they have a goal that they're trying to achieve. And that's just one goal. And so I reread my goals because they inspire me. And one of the things that I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, I went to school for it, but I haven't done anything with it, was to produce a movie. And so this year I started writing the screenplay for it. And I don't know if it's something that I'm going to do, just an independent film that I'm going to fund, or is it something I'm going to sell to a production company? I don't know. And I don't know how it's going to look or how it's going to do, but I need to honor that because it's coming from somewhere special.
And I believe it's going to happen because I know you talk about this, but when we stay focused on the overall vision and the goal, the how kind of reveals itself. But when we get stuck on the hows and why it won't work or why it can't, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I believe that's going to happen for you.
It comes down to making decisions. My wife, Mindy, and I, we own a company together. And, we talk on a daily basis about how just go do something. Just go do something, make decisions. And if it turns out that you don't like how it goes, make a new decision. And if they don't like how that goes, make another decision. People are so paralyzed. They're trying to figure out their whole life before they take a single step in the right direction. They're trying to avoid all rejection and pain by mapping out 10, 20, 30 years in the future. Like, oh, well, what if I do it this way and I do it wrong? It's like, no, that's not how it works. You need to go do something that then you find out it didn't go the way you wanted. So then you can adapt and change and try something else and try something else. When I started my speaking career, at that young age in high school, I had no idea that I was going to share the stage with U.S. presidents and the Dalai Lama and get paid $20,000, $30,000 a speech. I had no idea that was in my future. I just knew that day I was getting paid $75 to go make an audience laugh, cry, and rethink their lives. That's all I knew. And I have that mentality still today. Is like, I'm going to San Diego tomorrow. I'm going to drive to speak to a conference. And all I know is my goal is to get in front of that audience, get them to laugh, get them to cry, and to rethink their lives. And who knows where that speech will go or what those people will do with the information. I just know one foot in front of the other.
I love that, Sean. So basically what you're saying is you have intention. Like, you know what your intention is, and that's all you're clear on. And that's all that matters. Like, I think so many people, you get so stuck, not you, but people get stuck in the gap of like the how, the steps, the process, and then it stops them.
I think everybody gets stuck. I mean, let's be clear to your listener right now that the experts and the gurus, you love listening to their podcasts, watching their documentaries, going through their products, they all get stuck.
Yes.
they still get stuck. They still are in relationships. They're like, what the hell am I doing? Or they're in business moments where they're like, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, or where's the money going to come? I just listened to M. Night Shyamalan, the producer of movies, and he was talking about how his most recent movie, Split, which was a huge success, he said, I needed to mortgage my house to pay for it myself because I knew I didn't want any other person putting their opinions into this movie. So I needed to fund it myself.
Wow.
And he's already a huge success, but he had to take a risk on it himself all these years later. I think the common misconception is you make it in a career, you make it in a guru state, and then it's easy sailing from that moment on. Just because you have a public presence or you have built up some cash doesn't mean it's now smooth sailing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's true too. I really glad you shared that because I think people get into this comparison zone. Like they think they have to be this all or nothing. And you're right. Everybody no matter how successful somebody appears or is, they still are human and have those days and those moments. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Speaking of those moments, when you have self-doubt or I'm sure you have those days, like you said, you have those moments of self-doubt. How do you shift yourself out of it? Like what are some steps that you take to get yourself back on track and to focus on your intention and what you want to do?
Sure. So self-doubt, this is going to be surprising maybe to you. It shows up every day for me.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. I don't think I get many days in the year where there's zero self-doubt. It's something that I've never found fully ever goes away.
Okay.
I think it's the brain's way of trying to survive, saying, hey, play small, don't stand out. That could get you hurt. You may not survive if you do this. And so the self-doubt is really some kind of like low-level, immature survival mechanism. But you have to rise above that because none of the good stuff is in your comfort zone. All of the good stuff is outside of your comfort zone. And so that means what I have to do is I have to get back to my self-care list. I travel around. I've got it right here with me now with a notebook, and it's a graph paper notebook. And this is probably one of the most important tools in my life. If my house was burning down, I would run in, I would grab this.
Okay.
Not my laptop, not family photos. I would grab this notebook.
Okay.
And it is my self-care list. And on it, I track every single day these activities. And I don't do them all, but more of these things I do on my list. And it's both my when life works and when business works list. Things like workout, hydrate, restful sleep, journal, hygiene, groom, reading, meditating, organizing and cleaning, connecting with my wife, smoothie, juice. Did I mentor somebody? Did I get mentored? Did I watch an inspiring video? Did I spend time with friends? Did I go out in nature? Was I on a podcast? Was I networking? Did I have a sales call? Did I review my goals? Did I write my list? Did I hunt for a keynote? Did I map out my day? Did I collect money today? Did I ask for a referral? Did I study something about business or money? Did I showcase in front of an audience? Did I interact with my Facebook group? Did I swing for the fence and do something scary? Did I love myself today? And, when I go through this list, I check the things off as I do them. And I find that the more on this list that I do, the better I feel. And so then I mark down at the end of the day, what did I score in my overall mood out of 10? And here's what I found. I started this at the beginning of this last 2018.
Okay.
And I have been tracking every single month. And then at the end of the day, I write down what did I score myself in my mood. And it's fascinating. It is always, always, always higher moods are based on how many of these things did
That's really, really brilliant because it's so basic, but nobody's really actually taking those steps to do it like that. And I like that you said graph paper so you can literally like check off everything. So you basically make your own little checklist. So you can't skip a day. It's like your own, you have to check it. And I think it's brilliant because, I interview a lot of people about their morning routines and I ask them that question. And, people share their morning routine and I'm always like, but I don't believe that happens every single morning. I bet that's great, but like, does it really happen every morning? And the checklist helps hold you accountable because now if you don't feel like getting out of bed and you just pick up your phone and start scrolling social media and you haven't done your list and you don't feel good about things, you're very clear why.
Well, that's why for me, I created this last year in 2017. I was in a dark place and I was really lost. I was scared. And I thought, you know what? You're the only one that's going to pull you out. You have great friends, you have an amazing wife, but you are the one that's going to have to pull yourself out of this slump. And so that's when I was like, the cure to insecurity is self-care. If you take great care of yourself, your insecurities don't have a stronghold over you. And so I started mapping it out from January 1st, beginning of this year, and I just started tracking it every single day. And it's amazing the days that and I can even tell you, I can look through and tell you which were the strongest months for me. And then I can tell you why. You know, most people, their mood is some kind of magical ghost. Like, I have no idea why today I feel good and yesterday I didn't. I took the guesswork out. I made it a mathematical formula because for me, if you don't have the metrics on something, how are you ever going to improve it?
Brilliant.
It doesn't matter if it's calories, macros, finances, your mood. If you don't have a metrics, how can you improve?
Now, Sean, do you find yourself going to this list sometimes to shift you out of the mood? Like, okay, I'm feeling this way, so I'm going to go pick some things to do on here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes I'll try to even kind of cluster them. So I'll go into the gym, I'll put my headphones on and I'll listen to inspiring videos. And then after the workout, I'll text one of my mentors and ask them how their day is and how I can serve them. Or I'll put out a Facebook post and reach out to my community and love on them. You know, whatever I got to do, I'll cluster the things. Maybe on the car ride home from my commute, I'll listen to an audiobook, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And I just got to get those little wins under my belt. Because let me tell you, you don't get to control the outside world much. I don't get to control the economy. I don't get to control the weather. I don't get to control how people think about Sean Stephenson. But I do get to control what things, these little activities that I can do to feel proud of myself, feel good, create momentum. You know, I've learned from one of my mentors that you need momentum in business more than anything else. If you don't feel like you're making momentum happen, you're not building up steam, you're not getting progress, you're feeling lousy.
Yeah. Wow. This is gold right here. I love everything you just said. I'm implementing that self-care list right away. I feel like I have my gratitude. I have idea of the things to do, but the way you just laid it out makes so much sense. And it needs literally a checklist and graph paper. So I'm implementing. I'm going to copy that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So do you ever worry about what other people think?
Only every day.
Only every day.
You know, here's how the worry has evolved, though. I used to worry about what strangers thought about me.
Okay.
And that is a waste of time because strangers don't know you personally at all. So their opinion of you is strictly through the pictures that they are painting in their own mind. They've never spent time with you. They've never held your hand. They've never hugged you. They have no idea what you're really like. So that was one phase that I had to get out of because, you know, based on the rough numbers that we put together with social media, I've reached over 300 million people.
Wow. And that's a small number, right? just 300 million.
Now, that's over 24 years, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, so with that number of people, I can say I don't even know 50,000 of them personally. No? And so if you start looking at the percentage of the people that know me versus that I know, that was a big shift to think about. Like, wait a minute, why do I care so much about people that I don't even know personally? And then the next thing is, do you need to care about people whose lives you want nothing to do with? Because let me tell you, if somebody is negative and mean and troll mentality, do I need to care what they think if that's not at all the kind of person?
No. Why is that, Sean? Like, that's like a recurring theme with people. Why do people care more about what strangers think or people with as a plant's profile picture on their social media? Why do we care about what they think versus actual people?
I think I come from more of a scientific background.
Okay.
And So I think all this has to do with the evolution of our brain. I think our brain, we're social creatures that used to survive in tribes for way longer than we used to live in individual homes by ourselves or with one person. We used to survive through tribes, and if you weren't liked by the tribe, you could be left to starve or die, And so I think there's this huge long-term memory of our in our cellular system that is saying if you aren't liked by everybody, or if you aren't liked by the tribal leaders, you're going to get thrown out, you're going to be cast aside, and you're going to die. And so it's very, very primal. And yet, there's a lot of primal things. Most people don't use their appendix, right?
Right.
Like, we can't find a use for the appendix anymore. You can even live without it. But at some point it was important, probably, or whatever. But like, that may be a part that we no longer need. I personally think with time, our insecurities are going to evolve. We're gonna care less about what other people think because we will have more time under our belt.
Sure.
And this could be hundreds of thousands of years, but we'll care less about what other people think because we don't need them to survive as much. So I think that's a big part. But then lastly, there are people that I care about what they think. And here's who they are. They're people that have what I want and who have lives that I admire.
Okay.
And it's both of those things combined. Because there are people that have what I want that I don't want to emulate them. And there are people that I admire the way they live, but they don't have anything that I want. They might be a good person, but they aren't playing big. I want to go after learning from and getting the opinions of people that have what I want and that I admire, because their advice is usually gold. I have a few people in my life that have never given me bad advice, that have told me, hey, your head's up your ass, Sean. You need to clarify, what are you doing with your value system now? What are you doing with your ethics? What are you doing with your day-to-day thoughts here? And they will call me out, and I care about what they, because they have what I want, and I admire the way they live.
Yeah. And that's really good advice too, because a lot of people go around getting advice from people that really don't matter, or they don't have a life that we want to live. So it's interesting that we let those stay in our gap and hold us back caring about those. But I'm glad we spoke into that, because that's a very common theme. Like, especially people going for goals, you notice they'll be so excited about a goal. They'll post about it, let's say on social media, they get a negative response and they give up their whole goal.
Yeah. And that's why sometimes it's important. I think there's a time and a place to share your goals. I have one friend that does these secret long-term projects, and he's one of my best friends, but he doesn't tell me, he doesn't tell his family, he doesn't tell anybody. He works on them privately.
Okay.
And I asked him once when he finally came to me with this big project. He's like, I've been working on this for 15 years.
Whoa.
Holy cow. He shows it to me. I'm, of course, blown away. It's amazing. And I said, why didn't you feel the need to share this? And he said, Sean, if you would have just even turned the corner of your eyebrow up at me thinking that I was crazy, that would have decimated me to stop.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. But what do you think about, some people need that accountability of telling somebody? Like, if you don't ever tell anyone about your goal, you may never go for it.
So that's why I think you need to share at stages.
Okay.
Because he wasn't done with his goal. He's still working on it, but he had it stabilized enough that if I raised my eyebrow, it wouldn't matter. He had enough steam underneath it. Yeah, that's the key. For instance, let's take health. You've got a background in helping people with weight loss, right? And if you are morbidly obese, right? And you tell all your friends, I'm going to lose weight, and you're hundreds of pounds overweight, people are like, yeah, you've said that before, right? And people are just like, you condition them not to believe in you.
Yeah.
So you need to get some traction under that goal. You need to, hit that gym, change out that diet, shift out that mindset, make that, shift where all of a sudden you start seeing the inches going down. You start feeling like it's time to buy new clothes. You start to see the results. Then you tell people you're working out, and it doesn't matter because you now know you're on the right track. And if
Yeah,
they're
that's a very valid point.
and if they're
That's a very valid point. I think of that even just going back to this podcast. When I was starting this podcast, I had a lot of people say, oh, it's too late to get in the game. Don't do it. And I started having self-doubt. But then I'm so passionate and purpose about it once I go that it doesn't matter what someone says. So I get what you're saying. It's very...
underneath it all, whether it's starting a project, getting into a workout routine, starting a business, whatever it is, there's one thing that will trump everybody else's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Results.
Yep.
If you go and get results, everybody thinks you're a genius. One of my mentors said, Sean, you're crazy until you start making money. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, because if you go tell somebody an idea and they're like, there's no way. And I've had business partners in the past. I would tell them an idea and they're like, there's no way. There's this risk and that risk and this risk. And the moment it made a couple $100,000, then all of a sudden it was a brilliant idea. Well, that's a great idea. And it's because results speak louder than anything. Go collect results. And no one's going to argue with the result. Like, who is going to argue with somebody who has now already produced the evidence? It's already here. Sorry you don't believe in what's here right now, but I do.
Oh, this is so good. This is so good. I have so many more questions for you, and I'm going to narrow it down so I don't keep you all day. Okay, the questions I've got to ask you. I want to know, who do you personally surround yourself? What types of people are in your circle? Talk to me about that. What types of people do you look for? And do you actually get people out of your life when they're not the right people?
Yeah. So there's two questions there. I'll answer the second one first.
Okay.
And that is, I'm constantly pruning the garden.
Okay.
And I have a model that I think is really going to help you and your listener. And that is, I look at your people you hang out with. They are like on a sporting team with you.
Okay.
And you're going to have stars. And then you're going to have bench players. And then you're going to have people you cut from the team. And I can tell you that they cycle through oftentimes. And there'll be times in your life where you will have somebody and they're a full-on star. And then all of a sudden you run into friction with them, or they run into friction with you, and you say, you know what, time out. It's time you go to the bench. And you're not off the team, but you're not playing right now. We're not going to talk for a while. I love you, but this isn't going to work. So you and I need some space. And then if you find that in that interim, they get their life together, or you guys are able to work it out, then you start them again and they're a star. And that's awesome. Sometimes they're so darn toxic that you cut them from the team. And you say, you know what? The bench was not far enough. You need to get further away from me. And so you have to cut them out of your life. Now, I will say this. There are these rare occasions where somebody you cut from a team, years and years later, you draft them again. You bring them back onto the team. But maybe you bring them first as a bench player and you try them out again and you see, have we made any changes in the years that we've been apart? And then if it's a lot better, then you start them again. But I'm constantly having to think about who are my starters, who are on the bench, and who has been cut from the team. And I'm talking about friends, lovers, family. It is a very, very touchy subject to bench a family member or to cut them from a team, because our biology says you can't do that. But let me tell you, if somebody's toxic, I don't care what role they have, they're impacting your destiny. One negative downer that is horrible can derail your destiny.
Absolutely.
And that's unacceptable. So yes, I'm constantly having to prune the garden. I've been benched on people's lives. I've been cut from people's lives. I recommend it for people with me to them. There are times where I need to be separated from somebody else because we become a crutch to each other. I get it. And then you asked, who do you surround yourself with? People I pay.
Oh,
I found that the people that, well, I'll put it this way. The people I pay or get paid by because the people I get paid by are raising their hands and they're saying, I want to get better. I want to improve. And I'm going to give up this fun set of fun tickets, which is what I call money. And I'm going to give up this set of fun tickets in exchange for what you know and your tutelage. And so I hang out with people that pay me. And then I also hang out with people that I pay because I say, look, I want to bend your ear. I want to learn from you. I want to be around people who are willing to give up their fun tickets to be in a select group of people. So the majority of the people that I hang out with fall into three categories. Either I pay, they're my mentors and peer group, or my employees, or they are my students and my apprentices. I find that if there's not usually a money exchange, it's oftentimes a drain long term.
But what about, would you say about friends that like, do you have friends then, or do those friends become those people that are paying you or that you're paying?
It's usually, and sometimes they become both. I have people that I pay and they're paying me. I don't, if I track my peer group, and I used to be afraid to talk about this because it sounds almost shallow, but it's not. I don't think I have anybody really, really close in my life that I'm not paying or that isn't paying me.
Okay, well, what about your wife? How'd you meet your wife?
I'm paying my wife. We're in business together. She pays me. She's in business with me. So we're making money together. There's a money exchange.
Interesting.
And money is an interesting thing because it's something that we all secretly want, but we're afraid to say it. We're afraid to say it. But you know what all money is? Is it's raising the hand that I'm committed to something. I'm devoted to something. I am heading in the direction of something, and I'm willing to give up my hard-earned energy that I put into this other thing. I'm willing to give you that physical embodiment of that energy, which is that money. And this is something that hit me this year that I was like, wow, the biggest drains on my life are people that somehow I'm not in some type of commerce with. And countries that are in commerce with each other don't go to war.
Yeah.
Historically, why would you go to war with somebody that you are making a living with?
Yeah.
It's like you don't pick fights with somebody.
I don't think I've ever looked at it that way. This is a definite eye-opener. Interesting. Okay, Sean, final question, because otherwise I will go all day with questions. I have so much I want to learn from you. I want to know if somebody's listening right now that's in their own personal rock bottom. So maybe they've lost a business, they've had a financial hardship, maybe they have a new disability or they're living with a disability that they're stuck on. They're stuck in victim mode and they want to start shifting and leveling up and creating something from nothing. What are 3 pieces of advice you would give them so they can start shifting that?
Number 1, you have to get a self-care list.
Okay.
And your self-care list is going to be customized to you. And the best way to come up with your self-care list is look at in health, wealth, and relationships in your past. When your life was working best, what were you doing then that you're not doing now? And go back to that. Human beings are notorious for stopping what works. So all of us, you have to go back to what works. That's the first thing. Get a self-care list and stick to it. The second thing is, how can you make your life bigger than just about you? What is something much bigger than you? Because if your life is just wrapped up in you, you will either burn out or you'll lose connection to like the purpose of why you're here. And so find something bigger in your life. Who are you here to serve? Who are you here to be a guide for? I used to say, who do you want to be a hero to? And now I've changed my opinion. Not who do you want to be a hero to, but who do you want to guide as heroes? Like, who do you want to guide as the hero? And then the third thing I would say is be ruthless about the environment you keep. And I don't mean ruthless in a malicious way. I mean meticulous way. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with an empowering environment. If you have to pack up and move, I used to live in a cold climate and I hated it, but I thought I didn't have a choice until finally one day, Mindy and I we're talking, and she's like, you don't have to hate winter. We could just live in a warm climate. Let's do this. So we packed up and left, and that shifted so much of my quality of life. And so you got to have an empowering environment where you live, who you spend time with. You know, what information are you consuming? I've decided about 4 years ago, based on a recommendation of a mentor, I'm not listening to a single stitch of news. I don't turn on the news. I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to news. And you know what? I still know what's going on this planet because I'm connected to human beings, but I don't need somebody else pumping negativity into my brain at all for me to survive.
Yeah, I love all of this. Yes. Sean, this has been so incredible. Okay, where can people get more of you? Where can they find you? Where are you most active? Where do you want them to go to learn more?
I would say, let's start. If you like listening to me, why don't you follow my podcast?
Okay.
And listen to, I help people create a lucrative speaking career and get the message out there. And I also share personal life success strategies. So go to theshawnstevensonshow.com, and you can put that in a link somewhere, theshawnstevensonshow.com, and you can follow my podcast there.
Amazing. I love it. And where are you most active on social media? Which platform?
I would say Facebook.
Okay.
So the Shawn Stephenson. So facebook.com/the Shawn Stephenson.
Awesome. You are great. Thank you so much, Sean.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at NatalieJillFit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.